Welcome back, DirtFish Rally friends, to our coverage of the 2021 Monte Carlo Rally. David, I almost forgot what year we're in there.
It's understandable, Cole. Man of your age.
And it's cold. Yeah, listen,
chilly.
10 stages down. We're in the lunchtime service on Saturday. We only have one more stage to go, but my goodness me, have we had an exciting morning. What I'm going to give you is our top 10 after stage 10. As I say, plenty to talk about from this morning's stages, but let's quickly give you a rundown. The man who leads, well, Sebastian Ogier, remember it was Evans overnight, but Ogier now leads from Elfyn Evans after 10 stages. His lead, 14.3 seconds. Kalle Rovanperä finds himself moving up into third place. He is 50 seconds off the lead, 36 seconds behind Elfyn Evans. Thierry Neuville with a fabulous time through stage 10 moves up to fourth, 51 seconds off the lead, just behind Kalle Rovanperä. That will be an interesting one to watch through the final stage of the day. Sordo finds himself in fifth place. Katsuta-san is sixth. Andreas Mikkelsen continuing to move up the leaderboard in his Rally 2 car. He is in seventh. Gus Greensmith is in eighth. Adrian Formeau is ninth. Eric Cameli is in 10th place.
Quite unusual to lose like 2 seconds per kilometer compared to the winner of the stage without doing any mistakes. So it's been a clean stage for me, but yeah, incredibly slippery condition. Not much we could do. It was very slippery, especially this stage 2. I think I never had such a low grip in a stage in my whole career. So at this moment you have to be patient and try to make the best of it, but not so enjoyable at this point. Then there was other situation this weekend also where the tire is working good, but yeah, there is some. I think it's no point to discuss it in the media. We'll discuss it together with Pirelli again, but for sure we are also happy to give them a bit of time, but for sure there is some point that need to be improved.
Yeah, I mean, we're still here. It wasn't the best morning, to be honest, on stage 9, especially we were too slow at the start. And then on stage 10 I felt like I had an okay run, but like you say, the conditions were polishing up a lot. It seems like the temperature went down, and with every car that passed it sort of polished the ice and created a very slippery surface. We had a small stall, so that cost us a handful of seconds, but we're still here and still all to play for.
Where do we start?
We must start. This morning I may have intimated that we weren't really going to see big gaps.
So what are you trying to say? Was I perhaps correct?
Yeah, no, absolutely you were, and I did say that you were right, but you just looked disappointed with me there. You know, I think it's been an incredible morning. It's been a proper Monty morning, hasn't it? You know,
and they weren't big gaps, David. They were huge gaps.
You know, the first stage this morning, Seb won it by 17.8 seconds. The second stage, Thierry Neuville won by 12 seconds. These are huge, you know, massive gaps. But we did kind of.
But the thing,
I was going to say we did expect this, but actually you expected it.
I expected it. The thing with Thierry Neuville's time, David, is that Neuville was 12 seconds ahead of Lube.
This is on the second stage.
On the second stage, but in terms of, you know, he was 24 up on Rovanperä.
Yeah.
He was.
Should we go back to the first stage? Let's talk about stage 9 first.
We're all over the place this morning. Who can blame us? It's been a dramatic morning. Let's go back to the first stage. We started with Evans with a slender lead. Just remind us of the conditions in that opening stage.
That was the one that it changed sort of consistently, didn't it? That was the one consistent thing about it, was that it consistently changed from wet asphalt to dry asphalt to black ice to slushy snow to harder snow to back to black ice. There was I think there was a one section of 3 or 4 kilometres, so a couple of miles in the middle, that was reasonably dry asphalt, but otherwise just changing all the time and clearly getting muddier and muddier. And you know, something that we noticed from the footage and from the coverage is that your cuts, you know, from the recce would have changed quite dramatically, because where you might have put the car off the road to cut, there's a huge amount of ice in there now, and you know the car will be sliding a lot more. So the drivers are taking a lot of choices kind of as they're arriving at the corner. But you know, the gravel note crews have been through obviously, but there would have been a lot of changes in notes this morning, and at some point you have to decide, right, enough's enough, you know, because there's not a huge amount of time to affect these changes in the notes.
So anyway, you prioritise,
absolutely, yeah.
You know, where there's most jeopardy, where there's most danger, or where there's most time to be gained, that is where you will make the change.
Because there is, you know, as we've talked a lot to a lot of ice note crews, And you know, this is where the experience really comes in, because a younger ice note crew, you can start to see everything, and then it's like, oh, got to get everything in, this, and then suddenly you've changed everything. You know, every corner you could probably make a small change to, but it is like you say, you prioritise them.
Yeah, and just to remind you folks that, you know, remember the ice note crews go through maybe a couple of hours before the stage starts. They only have a certain amount of time to communicate those changes to the driver and the co-driver.
It's a difficult environment to do it.
Really
you're in the mountains, and sometimes, I'm not sure on this one, but they sometimes have that rendezvous point, don't they, where it's the
designated
only point,
points they do.
Only point on the itinerary that you're allowed to come into very close contact outside of the service park to hand the notes over.
Failing that, it's telephone, which in itself is
it can be a nightmare.
Yeah, it can be an absolute nightmare. The first stage was tricky, there's no question about that. The man who mastered the conditions was Sebastian Ogier.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about it in our opening piece this morning, David. He uses every single ounce of experience that he has in this rally, and it shows itself so often, and it really showed itself in that stage.
It did, exactly that, Colin. You know, it was just, he could draw on the experience. He didn't get rattled by, you know, the inconsistent conditions. He just kept driving. And the one thing that is really, really hard to find in a stage like that is a rhythm. You know, it's so difficult when everything is changing. You know, you're braking early for one corner, the car's stepping out, sliding. You're braking early for the next, then you're having to get back on the gas because you've got more grip. Ogier can deal with that, you know, and he can find a rhythm, and clearly did find a rhythm in that most difficult of conditions.
Yeah. I think in some ways, David, in a stage like that, you have to accept that maybe the rhythm won't come, and you just have to manage as best you can.
But that's a state of mind thing, isn't it? You know, and it's about staying calm, but also, you know, you'd have to say with someone like Elvin, he's been overly cautious. You know, Ogier's remained calm, but he's just been able to just lift his pace. And risk it that little bit more, but still drive within himself.
Yeah, he didn't have any moments, and quite a few drivers had moments in that opening stage. We have to remind you folks that the first stage this morning was run fully in the dark as well, and that just added another element, didn't it? You know, it really did to the challenge. But the biggest loser in that opening stage was Ogier and Tanak, who picked up a puncture very, very early on, lost a bucket load of time and came into the stage end.
You know, I was just checking the splits just before we started there. He dropped 26 seconds to Ogier in the first split, so he'd had that spin. It's just been a nightmare of a morning, hasn't it?
And we have to absolutely make that point. It wasn't just a tyre that, if you remember back to Ogier yesterday, he said, I didn't do anything. I took the normal line, the tyre exploded, or the tyre punctured. What we have to say about this is Tanak was quite up front. He had a spin. He went offline. Clearly, he's hit something. He's picked up some rocks, and that is what's caused that puncture with Ogier and Tanak. He drove through the stage. He came into the stage end. There was clearly big impact damage on the inside of that rim. There was no rubber on it. That tyre was done. There's no using that tyre again. Lost time. So at the end of the opening stage, we sat down, we had a breather, we had a little coffee, David, and we thought, wow, what a morning we've had. Little did we know.
The next stage cannot be nearly as dramatic as this one.
Little did we know what lay ahead. You know, we put the television back on for the start of that stage, and we saw the glorious helicopter shots from the WRC helicopter. And it was white, it was snowy, it was challenging. Talk us through, David, the way that stage developed in terms of the surface and the times.
It's something that we've seen on numerous rallies, and it's clearly what's happened is, you know, Pierre-Louis Loubet, first car on the road, he's gone through, got to the end of the stage, you know, was admitted by his own admission, was quite cautious, didn't take too much of a risk, as he would, because, you know, he'd never driven a stage like that before, certainly not in a World Rally car. So he took his time, got there, and ended up just second quickest. And, you know, what's happened is there's a crust that sits on top of the road that is really good ice. You know, the temperature dropped to sort of -3, -4 in there, and that's given the studs something to grip, something to bite into.
Really good, so they've gripped into it at the start, gripped like that, right into it.
Do you want to draw us a picture?
No, but I'm going to tell you what happened later on this stage. So Loubet could grip like that into it. The boys later on were just kind of scratching into the ice.
No, they weren't.
They were.
No, they weren't, because the crust had gone.
Correct.
So then they sort of sank into a softer base level of snow. It's not scratching. It's
scratched, but there's no ice. They went through.
You've got to go through.
But that's the surface of the road.
Here's the surface. It's gone like.
You explain what's happened.
Like that.
Explain it. Explain it, David.
But we've seen this before on an event like Rally GB, where you have on a muddy stage, you have a really quite firm base where it's been wet and then it's dried out, and it's created that hard surface that the tyre can dig into. But then as each car passes, it scrapes away
quite quickly.
Yeah,
one or two cars and it's gone, and the grip's gone.
Yeah, exactly. And now on Rally GB, you're down to mud, and that's where you really struggle. And then on GB, as you get down there, you just generate more and more mud from underneath. Here, that solid crust has gone, and they're into the slushy snow, where there's just nothing for the stud to bite into. Don't forget here that we talk about a stud, and we're dealing with a 2mm stud on this Soto Zero tyre, the studded winter tyre from Pirelli. You go to Sweden, you've got a 7mm stud. Last weekend in the Arctic Rally, Pirelli developed this brand new tyre that's only for national championships, which is a 9mm stud. That's an awful lot of grip that you're going to generate there.
Yeah.
So once you're down out of that layer of ice and you're into that softer snow, there's nothing. You're relying on the tread to dig down. Once you're there, you are struggling, and that's where these huge time losses have come from.
So we saw some massive time losses in that stage, as you rightly said. Where are we? I'm on stage 9. We'll move on to stage 10 on my times. Neuville was quickest. He did a great job, it has to be said, because he didn't have the best of conditions, but he had better conditions.
And we watched him and we thought, he's looking good. He looked in control. He looked quite composed. But he got to the end of the stage and said that it didn't feel so good. He felt that he couldn't find a rhythm in there. I would have thought the rhythm would come. Excuse me. I would have thought the rhythm would have come easier in that second stage, because you had more consistent snow. You'd got snow for a longer time. But yeah,
it was an astonishing stage. It really was quite an astonishing stage. There are big stories though, David, and the biggest story in stage 10 was also Ogier and Tanak with a puncture. Now, for a little while we didn't know what was going on. He was starting, he was stopping, he was going very, very slow. It soon became evident that he'd picked up a proper second puncture. Once again, no rubber on the tyre.
Yeah.
He only went out, it was a gamble, and we talked about this again at the start of the day. He was going for out there this morning. It was a gamble. He only took one spare tyre with him. So he's got in the boot of the car a rim, that is all. He picks up another puncture, and it's not just a puncture, he loses all the rubber. He's on the rim again, David. He's completed the stage, lost a lot of time. But the worry is, he's out of the rally now, because remind us of the regulation, you've looked it up.
Obviously, you have to have rotating inflated tyres, 4 of them, one at each corner.
When you go into service.
Into service, yeah.
So we've seen before, drivers will drive on the road section with a damaged tyre, and then they'll swap it for a punctured tyre in the boot. He doesn't even have that option, because he's got 2 rims and 3 inflated tyres.
How much of a gamble is it, to come out on a loop like the one this morning, short loop, 2 stages, not massively long stages, to run with just one spare? Monte is not. Okay, you do see punctures with the car dropping off the curbs and stuff, but
it's a gamble. It is a gamble.
It's always going to be a gamble.
The 3 Toyotas went out with 6 studded tyres.
Yeah,
and
it is a gamble.
Tanak had a job to do to catch the Toyotas this morning, and he went for
it. Give it a go. Yeah.
It looks, by the way, no confirmation yet, but Tanak is for sure in trouble. He was making his way back to service. Don't forget, folks, it's Monte Carlo Rally. There is no Super Rally going into the final day. So if Tanak doesn't make it, he's not back tomorrow. That's just seriously jeopardising.
Should we just explain that whole no Super Rally thing tomorrow?
Go ahead, yeah.
So Sunday is traditionally a short loop of two loops of 2 stages, usually on the Sunday of Monte, and because it's quite a tight turnaround, they have a regroup between the 2 loops. They don't come back into Monaco for service. They only have a limited window to get the second loop started.
There's only so many cars they can get through.
So it's usually 50 cars, isn't
55 cars, I think. So there's 55 cars.
The top, and essentially it is a race into Monte to get into the top 50 or top 55, because you're 51st or 56th, whichever it is. You're out, and your rally ends on Saturday night.
Exactly.
And because of that, there is no
Super Rally. So, folks, it has been an incredibly exciting moment. Now, there is a developing story that we will keep you updated with. David, we won't talk about that.
No,
sorry.
No.
Okay.
There
may be one more stage to go, folks. One more stage to go here. Let me remind you again of our top 4 or 5 drivers. Anything could happen this afternoon. By the way, sorry, David, sorry. Snow's on its way. Snow is on its way. Snow is
Colin.
most definitely on its way. The stage that's repeated this afternoon was the opening stage from this morning, which, as David rightly said, it was a mix of ice and damp and dry. There wasn't a lot of snow around. We may see that changing.
I thought you just said it was on its way.
It is,
It either is or it
it
isn't.
is on its way, but on its way could be imminently on its way. It could be on its way in the short term, or it could be on its way at this time next year.
Unbelievable.
I don't know when it's on its way, but in the next few hours, snow is on its way. It could change things around. Dramatic day, that is for sure, folks. Don't forget, we are here to bring you all the news, and we will continue to do that. If there are updates, we'll do you an update for sure before the next stage goes live. David, anything
Not that we're
before we go?
expecting any updates,
Not
because
that
there's
we're
no
expecting any
dramatic
updates.
stories.
There are no
There's
dramatic
no news
stories.
breaking.
There's no news breaking.
No.
Not right at this moment anyway, folks. Thanks for joining us for our update after special stage 10 of the Monte Carlo Rally.